Hello, my name is Juan Baeza for Group 1, Project number 2. My book is Fast Food Nation by Eric Schlosser. Uh, this book is basically like a research book on fast food industries. Eric Schlosser provides us lots of information that he has researched throughout many years. He interviews workers and also asks them where and how they make their food, since many have suffered and died from E. coli and other TNA meats. Um, Eric Schlosser tries to tell the readers how bad and tainted food is from the fast food, and how he shows how experts point out that market unfairly manipulates children under 8. Eric Schlosser also talks about how fast food has caused several diseases, and it has gotten several people sick. For example, mad cow disease, and a huge one in America, which is obesity. Part 2 of Project 2 is basically a summary. Uh, a quote I mentioned is on chapter 1, page 22, which Eric Schlosser mentions. If I had looked at McDonald's and saw someone flipping burgers while he was hanging by his feet, I would have copied it. Which means every restaurant has tried to get ideas and make it better in order to have more customers in their fast food restaurants. More customers, more money. Fast forwarding ahead, the author talks about how back then the huge target for fast food companies was always directed at children. He also mentions on page 43, um, it's not getting kids to whine. So pretty much fast food was a way just to keep them quiet, especially with the toys they provided that that just got a lot of mass production and they gained a lot of money. Chapter 8, Eric Schlosser brings the topic the most major job, which is like the behind the scenes research how fast food companies obtain their food from cows, which is pretty bloody and dangerous. Part 3. After reading Fast Food Nation, the author gives and explains lots of great key points that present a fair, biased argument for the readers. In my opinion, the author is a little biased since he describes some workers' environments with examples like, and workers needed to go to the bathroom were allowed to take a break. They were forced to pee right on the slaughterhouse floor near the meat that people would be eating, which does show he's biased in this section due to how he describes the workers. He does have a word choice where he combines his opponent's name and combining it by carrying a cuss word. Um, Part 4. My opinion of Eric Schlosser is he has a great method of investigating and gathering the information he needs in order to convince his readers and audience. In order to convince his readers, he gathered old and new information and talked about how it has made a good or bad change in America. On this occasion, it's bad since the fast food companies have become a little bad since they take advantage of kids and more consumers. I have made several surveys, and the majority of the anonymous people I have given the survey, all the interviews responding yes to the author's central arguments. Since the majority of my interviews all agreed, the majority gave examples on how it has caused many health problems, which is fast food, which is why I also agreed to the central arguments of Eric Schlosser. Many disagree that the fast food companies are bad. They actually say it's good for them and for a good price. They haven't really experienced the effect that it can do to your body, which is one of the uh, quotes that one of my interviews said to the people that disagreed on his central argument. Well, that is my project. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
I choose a book, Half the Sky, written by Nicholas T. Kristof and Sherry Udon. The book writes about women's rights in developing countries. So the first central concept of the book is to discuss women's rights in developing countries and tell women's painful experience to the world through local women's experience that is interviewed by authors. In developing countries, there are many issues of women's, for example, sex trafficking, gender-based violence, honor killing, and so on. So, the author keep looking for solutions. The second central concept of the book is to make readers.
The book presents a child that has many central arguments, in which they all have something in common, which is how violent video games can trigger violent behavior in children. Not only did Kuttner prove that it's in fact true, as sometimes violent video games do make children have some violent thoughts. But knowing her psychological background, I would have thought that Courtney would have used some of her own studies. However, she doesn't, which was pretty surprising. Overall, Kuttner's way of showing us her argument came in multiple ways, proof and examples from other professors at other universities. In my book, Grand Theft Childhood, Lawrence Kuttner does indeed show many signs of a biased opinion on the topic of violence in video games. Kuttner starts off her argument with a horrible example, in my opinion, to justify her own argument, claiming that the massacre killing in Colombia by the two teens, Eric Harris and Dylan Hibble, we automatically assume that the massacre happened because of the violent video games. If Kuttner was trying to be fair with her audience, then she failed by simply assuming results without investigating. This is practically an insult to many gamers out there, assuming that they're all going to or already murderers. To summarize his book in the simplest of terms, Kuttner starts off with a broad example to furthermore show her argument from the beginning, using the Colombian high school massacre members. Quote, 13-year-old Darren and half a dozen of his video game playing friends are sitting around at a table at a Boys and Girls Club in a working class section of Boston. We're talking about games, especially the violent ones. They've all played them. Quote, scenery always helps the reader understand more about this problem. It was quite clear that this example was mostly targeted at parents, since most children have a really common scene to the one Lawrence provided. Maybe to furthermore connect with the targeted audience, Lawrence informs us about how politicians view this, and how high school students describe Dylan and Eric as avid computer gamers. She also informs us about the attorney for one of the students, that claimed that the teen himself has taught himself how to kill people by playing Halo at his game console. He's trained and well learned by playing violent video games. Quote, overall, I've enjoyed reading Grand Theft Childhood by Lawrence Kuttner. It was a great book describing a controversial problem we have today, and it talks about it in a very detailed way with many examples.
Hello, my name is Roshana Van. And the book I'm reading about is called Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. And basically, this never giving up and forgiveness. And throughout the whole story is about this guy named Louis Samperini who was a track runner and later on was in the Air Force and was captured in the Japanese prison camp, and later on was through that he suffered post-traumatic disorder, and then afterwards he and the guy who tortured him meet, and the guy apologized, and throughout that he forgave him. I believe she's not biased because after the war ended, people thought Masashiro Watanabe was dead, but he wasn't. Later on discovered that he was alive after the book came out to sell, and later on in the epilogue she included his side, a little bit of his interview. But even though the man was not willing to interview, I feel that she's not being biased toward him. She did try to get interview, and then answers from him, but he wouldn't really answer, he wouldn't reply. So, and to what extent do I agree with this author? I agree that the term of never giving up is to show what it's like to be a serviceman, how, and also through that and forgiveness is for learning how to forgive so you can move on. And from this whole entire book, she brought the attention to us as an audience that we should pay close attention to prisoner and servicemen and the way how they were treated, and that we should pay them extra care and